what you have to watch for, though, is when you're doing things like that, is to try to not argue with them. You know, you get into an argument, you might be right, you know, in terms of whatever you're trying to show, okay? You know, I was never a good son. I was never there for my dad. He was always busy and I was busy, and you know, now he died. Okay, I was a terrible son. No, you weren't. Yes, you were. Yes, I was. No, and back and forth, right? Now they might be right, but the point is, you get in a big argument with them, and you might be right. The point is, you start to distance themselves from it. So sometimes people say things to me that, you know, I probably don't agree with at the point, but later on we can deal with this. Right now I'm trying to be a good listener. Okay, so you know, so helping them, you know, deal with that issue and not argue. Okay. Another one is to ask them to define words that are unclear to you. Now, you don't say things like, define your term. Okay, you know, they're not going to go, well. But instead say, well, what do you mean by that? Okay. So they're going to say things like, I'm a failure. I'm an idiot. I'm stupid. Okay? And your tendency is to argue with that, right? Say, no, you're not. Yes, I am. No, you're not. Yes. Instead, say, what do you mean by failure? Tell me about that. Okay? What's going on with failure? Okay? What? Say stupid. What do you mean by stupid? Okay? And let them, you know, explain that to you. Okay? So those are words that you're not clear on. Well, guess what? You know, your job is to at least ask them to point out what's going on there. Another one is ask about emotions. Now, my field, psychology, has been made fun of a lot, okay? And that's fine, I don't think. But one of the areas that they like to make fun of is that when something happens to someone, they like to make fun of a psychologist going, how do you, what's the word? How do you feel about that, right? How many of you heard that as kind of a funny, like, yeah, feel about that? Oh, don't give me that psychology stuff, right? Okay. So, you know, sometimes that's not really the best thing to ask. But, you know, when psychology students first learn that in a class and they practice that with another person, then it's sort of like, wow, that, you know, that really gives a lot of mileage. So they go home that night and someone says, will you pass the ketchup? And they go, how do you feel about ketchup? Just pass the ketchup, leave me alone, don't be that feeling stuff, right? Okay. So ask about emotions. So what are we talking about here? We're asking, so sometimes just to ask, what emotion came up for you? So they're telling you the story. You don't have to use that exact sentence, but whatever it is, because some people on the bell-shaped curve are really good at explaining their feelings. It really, you hear the term of getting in touch with their feelings, okay? So they're way over there on like the right side of the bell-shaped curve when you say, so what kind of feelings are you having after the death of your father? And they're saying things like, well, I feel sad and disappointed and some anger and actually some rage, and I'm confused, and you know, and they give you like 18 emotions just like that, okay? And there are other people way over on the left side of the bell-shaped curve when you say, so what kind of emotions are coming up for you with your dad? And they go, I don't know, just kind of weird, I guess. Okay? So sometimes they need a multiple choice question, okay? And so you say things like, sometimes people feel angry. Did that ever come up for you? And the person might go, yeah, I'm angry. Because, I mean, I feel guilty too, but, you know, he knew something was going on here, and how come he didn't pick up his phone and call, right? So I'm ticked off at him, okay? And I'm also, you know, I'm mad at my mother. You know, she divorced him. You know, she doesn't check in on him, so that left me for, you got it? And so it's asking, do you feel angry? Do you feel ashamed? Do you feel embarrassed? Do you feel, right? And so for some people, that's what they need, some little prompting on that. I remember when I was like in my early 20s, I took some workshop on being a crisis worker or whatever. I remember them saying something like, and then you check out your gut feelings about this. And I remember going, what the heck is that? Gut feelings. I just wasn't in touch with what was going on here. And so I had to sort of learn, like, maybe I need to pay attention to what's happening here. And now I'm going to say something that's very stereotypical, but sometimes when you talk to males, okay, they may not be as easily in touch with what's going on, okay? And again, for some females, that's that way too. So I don't want to be accused of, oh, males are this way, females are that way. But sometimes it may be more helpful to say to someone who's not in touch with their feelings, what's going on in your body, okay? There's a great book about men's grief called Swallowed by a Snake, okay? And this guy's name is Tom Golden, and he wrote the book like 15 years ago or so, which really kind of checked into men's grief, okay? And so when someone says, I don't know what's going on, I say, what's going on in your body, okay? And so here's a man whose son died, right? And he goes, I don't know, I just feel lousy. Well, what's going on in your stomach? My stomach? My stomach, I feel tight. I mean, so what's that? I guess anxiety, I guess just anxious. Well, why? Well, because I have 2 other kids. I mean, I'm thinking about them, that they could die. I don't want them out of my sight. I mean, it's like I got to check them all the time. I'm texting them and calling them, and how are you? And Dad, leave me alone. Give me some space, But I'm scared. Okay? Well, what else? What do you feel in your chest? My chest, it just feels empty. That's what I feel, empty. You got it? So sometimes, I remember a woman years ago she said, when my daughter died, it felt like a tree had been ripped out of my heart by the roots, And I just think of that visual, all that blood, and yet what does that leave when you rip out a tree? It leaves gaping holes, right? And that's for her, at that moment, the best explanation she could give about what was going on with her, okay? So asking about these and realizing that some people can come forth with them very easy, and other people's like, not sure what's going on here, all right? And there's no such thing as a wrong emotion, right? So if someone says, well, I feel kind of embarrassed about it, that's the wrong answer. Would you like to come back next week for the right emotion, right? It's like, no. Whatever they feel, you got to let them feel. When they say they feel guilty, our job is to let them feel guilty. But what do we most often say? Don't feel guilty. We're going to talk about guilt later on in this class. And one of the things that how many of you have had the experience? Okay, if you don't mind being on video for a minute, turn the video around for a moment. How many of you had the experience of feeling guilty, and someone said to you, "Don't feel guilty"? How many of you had that before? Don't feel guilty, right? No, I don't feel guilty, right? Did you go, oh, okay, thanks a lot, and you walked away, right? No, because what is guilt? Guilt is a feeling. So when they say don't feel guilty, guess what? They're saying don't feel, okay? And so that's a tough one, because you're not going to be able to change. Don't feel angry, don't feel guilty, don't feel embarrassed. They just feel. And even though you may not approve of that emotion, that's what they're doing. And part of it is you're sort of tapping into that and finding out what's going on inside. Okay? Okay. Another one is to watch for what's called the yes